Hi YouTube, I'm Ali, welcome to the channel. Right, there may well be a lockdown here because of the pandemic, but we can still pretend to be outside in the garden. Imperial Gardens, in fact, because today we're looking at Takenoko. A game all about a gardener, a panda, and the growing of bamboo. Takenoko takes place in olden days Japan, where our great imperial leader has just received a present, a sign of goodwill and friendship from China. That present is a giant panda bear, and our task as loyal subjects of the court is to look after the giant panda bear by building it a bamboo garden. Now we're going to start by designing the garden. We're then going to plant and grow bamboo, 3 different kinds of bamboo, and then we're going to feed that bamboo to the bear. Those 3 tasks translate into objectives, and that gives us the starting point for our game. This game is a victory point game. We're going to complete objectives by collecting objective cards and completing the objectives on the cards. So for example, a landscaping card with a landscaping objective might ask us to put particular plots of land together and irrigate them. A feed the panda objective card might have move the panda around the board and collect, i.e. eat, 3 different kinds of bamboo. And then finally, a growing objective card might be something like grow 2 kinds of bamboo in 2 different spaces to a particular height. Now, when we complete all of those objectives, and the number of objectives depends on how many people are playing, but when you've completed a certain number of those objectives, the game ends. And the winner of the game is the one that's collected the most victory points by completing those objectives. Takenoko is designed to be a family game with no taboo subjects there at all. The box says 8+. Honestly, you can play this with a 6-7-year-old quite comfortably. In terms of number of players, the box says 2 to 4, no issues there. I would definitely play this with 4 players. It's a little bit more fun than 2 players, I think. Though, actually, no, I take that back. I think both are just as equally okay. I have a preference for playing with 4 players simply because I like playing games with more people. In terms of duration, the box says 45 minutes, and I reckon that's pretty spot on for 4 people. 45 minutes to about an hour is exactly how long this game will take to play. In terms of type of game, this is a tile-laying game, but it is a board game. Can you play it on the go when travelling? No, you absolutely can't. Even on a train where you've got a big table in front of you, if you're lucky enough to be able to travel, or indeed have a table, no, I don't think you can. It's a board game for staying at home and playing, I don't know, let's say in a lockdown. I'm rambling. In terms of rules complexity, I would say this is very simple. It took us less than 2 minutes to read the book and less than a minute to explain the rules to a new player. Definitely simple. In terms of complexity of play and depth of play, I'm going to say it's quite light. There is a little bit of strategy here. In fact, there is definitely some strategy here. I don't know why I said a little bit. There is definitely strategy here, but honestly, it's quite light. So I'm going to call it light as well. In terms of interactions, I'd go with indirect conflict. You are going to be stopping other people doing things that they want to do, but you won't necessarily be targeting one individual. Now, type of game, this is very much a single-player game. You don't really form allegiances. There's no concept of forming allegiances here in this game, and you don't play as a team. So, single-player game. On to mechanics then. I'm going to start with tile placement because you build the board as you play. In fact, that's one of the objectives, if you remember. You're going to be putting down plot tiles in a particular order, irrigating them, and building the board as you go, starting from a central pond in the middle. Secondly, for my second mechanic, I'm going to go with a new one called questing. So this is the idea of taking a particular objective or a quest or a task card and completing it to benefit from something. In this case, we're picking out one of those 3 objective cards and we're completing the objective to be able to redeem and gain victory points. So questing is my second mechanic. My third mechanic is set collecting. This game does rely on you doing a particular set of things. For example, you're going to be getting a certain number of tiles together to form those plots, or you're going to be getting and growing a certain number of bamboo items together, a certain color of bamboo together, or you're going to be eating a certain, i.e. removing a certain number of bamboo tokens from the board. All of that is done in terms of sets. So set collecting is my third mechanic. Now, I do like the artwork in Takenoko's box. It is quite a chunky box, and I think it's probably a little bigger than it needs to be, but it's a nice, well-built box. It's got plenty of writing on the back in different languages describing what the game's about, and nice little cartoony graphics on the front. Looking inside, let's have a quick peek. What you start with, or what you immediately see, is the rulebook. The rulebook is fantastically well laid out. You get a different rulebook per language, which is nice. So the actual rulebook is quite thin and light. The other rulebooks I've snuck underneath the inlay that you get in this box, so I never get to see them, which is great. Now, you start off with this little cartoon, which is great. The rules are very simple to follow and very easy to understand. There aren't many examples. In fact, there are no examples of play actually in the book, which is a little bit of a shame, but honestly, it's so quick to pick up, it didn't really bother me that much. Now, in terms of what's in the box, and again, this is one of those boxes where you have an inlay that doesn't quite hold everything in place. I'm going to lift it up and show you. Here we go. Here's the inlay. It's way thicker than it needs to be. Each player will get a player board. Here are the 4 player boards that you get. Very well designed. They're not double-sided, they're only single-sided, so there's only one form of gameplay in this game. You get the 3 different kinds of bamboo I talked about. Now, what I really liked about these pieces is that they are actually made of bamboo, and they're designed to stack on each other. You have a base piece, and then you have these little pieces that sit on top. Each one is a different color and has a Japanese symbol on them, which is rather nice. These blue tokens are irrigation. They're going to be used to irrigate the plots. The plots, which is what makes up the board, are these hexagonal tiles here. Again, nice chunky cardboard. They're not double-sided, they're single-sided, but they are well marked and very clear to see. Some of the cards, some of the board cards here, the plots, there we go. Some of the plots come with extra symbols, almost dropped that, extra symbols, which further qualify what you can and cannot do on that particular plot tile. That's pretty decent. Now, what I really like, the objective cards. Let's talk about those. Small cards, which I have a complaint with. I don't really like small cards. For this size box, I would have thought it would be nicer to have bigger objective cards. But you have a number of objective cards. This, for example, is an example of a plot card. You can see that they're asking you here to have 2 yellow tiles and 2 pink tiles in that arrangement. And if you do that, you'll collect 5 points. There are other kinds of cards. This card, as I said, for example, is a panda, feed the panda card. So here, the panda needs to collect 2 green shoots or 2 green sections of bamboo, and he'll collect 3 points. So that's pretty self-explanatory. Like I said, a little small for my liking. What is really cool, though, are the actual tokens that represent the gardener and the panda. They are actual painted miniatures, little plastic miniatures. I don't know if I can get you a close-up of that later on. I think I will do. But these are gorgeous. I like these. So these are played and moved around the board in a particular way as you play the game. You also get these little action token markers. Now, these go on your player board and dictate the kinds of actions. So each round you can take 2 actions, one of which may be, for example, collect an objective. Another one might be move the gardener to a particular location and carry out the gardening action of growing bamboo. You mark your 2 actions with these little wooden tokens, again made out of bamboo. I actually think these are a bit redundant, but we'll come on to that right at the end. So, yeah. Now, the only other thing that I haven't mentioned here is that you get a dice, which indicates weather conditions. Another variability of play is as you play each turn, you roll the dice, and it tells you, it changes the rules ever so slightly to allow you to do certain things. And then there are these extra conditions that you can apply onto your plot tiles, which further affect the outcome of your objectives, or further affect the way you can interact with them. Yeah, so there's a box, there's a contents. I do like the contents. They're good quality contents, except for the cards, which I think are a little too small. I think this game has done a really good job of melding mechanics and theme together. The idea of building a modular board up as you go, as you play, makes perfect sense because I'm developing a garden. So that really fitted. And that mechanism of taking tiles, fitting them around each other and then irrigating them makes perfect sense to me. I also like the idea of how the bamboo is grown by the farmer and eaten by the panda. Again, that sort of flowed, and the mechanics of increasing the size of the bamboo shoots and then decreasing them with those little bamboo pieces made perfect sense as well. So yeah, great job on theme and mechanics. Now, you could argue that the choice you make of choosing a particular objective to pursue is in fact a meaningful decision. But my rebuttal to that is that you're making that choice blind. You don't know what that objective is actually going to ask you to do. And so, although you may be thinking you're making a meaningful decision, I'm not convinced you are, something that affects the outcome of the game. I think what you're doing is doing a particular choice on that particular go, but I'm not convinced it affects your end game that much. In terms of pathways to win, well, again, I suppose you could argue that if you're going after a particular set of objectives, for example, in the last game we played, my son was playing and all he did was go after the plot cards, trying to fit those plot cards in a particular variety of styles and irrigate them. And that was his strategy. Is that a pathway to victory as opposed to me, who was going for a random spread of plot cards and feed the bear and grow the bamboo? Yeah, I suppose, again, you could argue that there are multiple paths to victory, but I'm not completely convinced. Were luck and skill balanced in this game? Yes, I think they are well balanced. I think I love modular board games, and I think this played it out very well. The fact that you're a garden designer, a landscaper, and you're actually choosing to put plots of land together in a particular form based on objectives, I think that's quite clever. So that was a little bit of variance each gameplay, but tempered by the fact that you are following objectives, so only certain patterns are going to emerge. So that's quite good. In terms of a new guy playing a seasoned player, I think you would be well balanced. I don't think the seasoned player is going to have that much more of an advantage, so I think it'll still be enjoyable for both. So yeah, skill and luck balanced well here. Was I engaged in the game? Oh, I think I was. I think it's one of those games where you spend little time thinking about your next move because it's pretty black and white what you're going to do. You're either going to move a bear or you're going to pick a card or move the gardener. There aren't that many choices, and so there isn't that much thinking ahead, in my view at least. So yes, I think you are engaged pretty much all of the time. But again, I'm not completely convinced that you're totally captivated by the play here. Clear iconography and legible text. I would say that on the whole, the iconography was clear and the text was legible. I did make a point about the fact that the cards are a little small, the objective cards, but actually once you've got them in front of you, they're pretty easy to read. You can clearly see what you need to do and what point value you get. Now, one thing I could argue with is perhaps the weather die. When you roll that, the colour yellow is quite pale and not very visible, and I think there's a grey there as well that suffers the same way. They're not very visible. Apart from that, and I'm reaching here, I think there isn't much wrong with it. So those two things aside, I think we're okay. I did enjoy Takenoko. I still don't think I'm pronouncing that correctly, but I did enjoy the game overall. I think it's a great game to play. I love the fact that you can replay it multiple times. It's a modular board, which is always a good thing in my eyes. One thing about modular boards, just bear in mind that it will take up more space each time you play because your board's going to grow. So just bear that in mind when you play. But yeah, I do enjoy the game. I would recommend it. It's a great game. Right, that's me over and done with for another week of reviewing. I hope you've enjoyed this vid. If you have, please give me a thumbs up. I would definitely appreciate that. Further than that, you can drop me a comment if there's anything you feel that I've missed out or anything that you think you want to hear about. Let let me know in the comments below. And finally, if you've enjoyed this series and if you want to know a bit more about some of the other stuff I'm doing, try subscribing, because I'm about to re-engage in the game design or the board game design section of my channel, because I've got some exciting stuff to be covering there in the next few weeks. So yeah, hit me a subscribe. I'd greatly appreciate that too. Hit me a subscribe. Whatever. Right, I'll see you guys later. Take care.